What if I told you that one of the most powerful voices of the 21st century wasn't discovered until he was 62 years old? That before the glowing stages, before the record deals, he was sleeping in subway cars, cooking in greasy kitchens, losing the people he loved, and still dreaming that someday, somehow, the world might hear him. This is not just the story of a musician. This is the story of a man who turned decades of heartache into healing, a man who transformed pain into a message of love. And he screamed it from the stage like his life depended on it. In this video, we're diving deep into the extraordinary life of Charles Bradley, how he rose from the margins to become a soul legend, and why his voice still reaches out like an open hand to anyone who's ever felt broken, forgotten, or left behind.
I say, God, let me live or call me home. I'm tired of suffering. The world gave me a chance to let me know I have a voice. Now I got to go inside the deepness and bring it out.
Hi, I'm Andy Fenstermaker, host of Poetic Wax, a weekly music history series and podcast where I dig into the record collection I've been building since the 1990s and explore the sometimes little-known history of a band, album, or song from within. Before the world knew him as the screaming eagle of soul, Charles Bradley was just a little boy born in Gainesville, Florida on November 5, 1948. He came into the world quietly, in the shadow of poverty, in a home without his mother. You see, she left when he was still in diapers, and he was raised by his grandmother, gentle but poor. His early years were humid and hushed, filled with silence rather than lullabies. When his mother came back into his life at the age of 8, she took him north to Brooklyn, but New York didn't greet him with open arms. It was cold, it was crowded, and it was cruel. He slept on a mattress with rats scurrying in the corners. He was teased at school, misunderstood at home, and overlooked by the world. In his words, I didn't know love. I just knew survival. But then there was music.
And I like this, how a person can come from rock bottom and come to the top. And it make me realize that it's a chance for me.
One night his sister took him to the Apollo Theater to see James Brown. Charles sat in that velvet seat watching the godfather of soul move like thunder across the stage. In that moment, something cracked open inside of him. That man hit me so hard, I knew I had to do that. That's what I was born for.
My mother didn't. She was a beautiful lady and wild, and she did the best of her ability of doing it. But I just got tired of getting whipping. I ain't gonna say that I was a all good child. Every child do something bad once in a while. And when I got 14 years old, I just said, if I'm not wanted, I'm gone. And I left.
At 14, Charles ran away. No map, no money, just pain and instinct. He lived in subway cars, curled on cold seats, dodging police in the winter chill. He scavenged for food and slept with one eye open. Still, the dream of music followed him like a ghost. He drifted across the country, New York, Maine, Alaska, California. Wherever he went, he worked with his hands, washing dishes, flipping burgers, cleaning hotel rooms. He never stopped working, but he also never stopped dreaming.
I graduated from being a cook, and then I got me a band. I had a band in Job Corps, and that's what really made me like it. And everybody was starting to be friendly toward me. They was always friendly toward me, but I was wondering why they being too friendly toward me, because in the hood, in the ghettos, everybody ain't friendly to you. When they're friendly, they want something from you. But in Job Corps, everybody just want to be friends.
In Bar Harbor, Maine, he settled for a while. He worked as a cook for 17 years. At night, he became Black Velvet, a James Brown impersonator, so convincing that audiences swore he was the man himself. But after the cheers, he'd go home alone. No manager, no record deal, just hope hanging by a thread. Pain kept knocking on Charles's door. His brother was murdered, shot just steps from their home. Charles was the one who found his body. The grief carved something deep inside of him, something that would later become part of his voice. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out, he once said. So I sang. He also battled illness. He was homeless again. He was robbed. At one point, he was so sick he couldn't eat.
I got very sick. I saw myself leaving this room. I had gave up. When you're leaving this room, you go to a tunnel, so peaceful. The body just don't want to fight no more. And mother said, no, son, snap out of that.
And yet he kept holding on. God, he'd whisper in the dark, I know I'm not done. And he wasn't. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Daptone Records was slowly becoming a heartbeat of modern soul. One night, Gabriel Roth, its co-founder, heard Charles perform, but Roth wasn't captivated by the James Brown imitation. He was struck by what happened between the notes, the ache, the fragility, the soul beneath the surface. He introduced Charles to producer Thomas Brennick, and in that connection, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in his life, someone didn't ask Charles to impersonate. They asked him to tell his story. And when Charles stepped into that studio and opened his mouth, he didn't just sing, he testified. In 2011, at the age of 62, Charles Bradley released his debut album, No Time for Dreaming. The world finally had a chance to hear what pain sounded like when it was turned into music. His voice was cracked and imperfect, but it held everything: loss, rage, hope, love. Songs like Heartaches and Pain told the story of his brother's death. Why is it so hard? Asked the questions America still can't answer. And then there's The World is Going Up in Flames, which became an anthem for anyone who has ever felt like the world was ending, but chose to keep moving anyway. Critics praised him, fans adored him, but Charles never saw himself as a star. He saw himself as a messenger. I'm not trying to be famous, he said. I'm trying to heal. The beauty of Charles Bradley was that he never pretended to be whole. He stood on stage in his 60s crying in front of strangers, saying, I know what you're going through. I've been there, but I'm still here, and so are you. In Changes, his haunting cover of the Black Sabbath ballad, he sings not just as a man who has lost, but as a man who is learning how to let go. I'm going through changes, he croons, with his voice breaking. And in that break, we feel our own breaking too. We see his tears, we feel his tears, and we feel our own. He turned trauma into connection, loneliness into communion, and sorrow into song. His concerts weren't just performances, they were healing rituals. He'd leap into the audience, hugging people with tears streaming from his eyes, whispering, I love you. I'm not just singing, he would say. I'm sending love to your spirit. In 2016, Charles was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Still, he performed for as long as his body allowed. He said the stage gave him strength. And when he passed away on September 23 of 2017, the world lost a man who had every reason to be bitter, but chose love instead. His final album, Black Velvet, was a map of survival, of transformation, of what happens when a man refuses to let sorrow swallow him. Charles Bradley didn't just find his voice late in life. No, he used that voice to show the rest of us how to survive and how to love, even when it hurts.